It's time for another compressor update. If you've been following the saga, this is my third video on the air compressor, which typically I make car videos. But I'm already on my third motor on this air compressor. Two of them failed, one of them caught fire. I've made a bunch of upgrades which seem to be working, and I've made a few more that I'll tell you about in this video. One is a cooler before it goes into the tank. I also have an automatic drain valve, and a couple other things I talked about in the previous video, like a magnetic starter over here on the wall. So it's running great. I'm on year 5 now. This motor's been surviving for it's 3 years. So that's the eBay motor. This is the one from Compressor Source on eBay. And several people have had similar failures on their compressors. I'm not the only one with this. I think it's a TS5. It's the Tractor Supply Ingersoll-Rand system. Several of you in the comments have noted very similar failures of the motors, and I'm putting a link in the description below on how to find this motor, which was a bolt-on replacement, and it's working just fine. It's definitely buyer beware these days, guys. The pump itself has been pretty solid. So this is a 2-stage compressor. It plumbs the air from one stage into the second stage through this finned thing. And that is an attempt to cool the air. And then the way it came from the factory, there was an outlet here from the second stage, and it went straight down into the tank. And what I've done is I've added this cooler in line before the air goes into the tank. This is not necessarily designed for air compressors. This is used at your own risk. This is an oil cooler for a transmission, I believe, or for an engine, automotive application. And I've adapted it here to my air compressor. The theory on this cooler is to reduce the moisture coming out into my air lines, whether it's a paint gun or air tools. Humid air enters into the air filter. It gets compressed. In this case, a tool stage can go to like 170 PSI. When you compress air that much, it forces the moisture out. So that moisture comes out in the form of water droplets. And the cooler you can get the air in the tank, the more you can get the water out of the air. It's going to allow the water vapor to condense into droplets on the inside of the tank, and then it's going to get drained out the bottom, which I have now an automatic drain. So that means the output from the tank, which is about here in the middle, is not going to be warm, humid air. If you really wanted to get even more liquid out of the air supply, you could cool this even further. In fact, there's refrigeration systems that drop the temperature below freezing or around freezing. You can put ice bags or ice packs on the bottom of the tank, and that'll cool your air supply even more, and that even more water will drop out of it. So that's the goal, guys. It's just to make that work a little bit better. I'll do a demonstration a little bit later in the video showing the temperature kind of before and after this cooler, and the temperature of the tank and so forth. I think it's working really well. There's a little bit of a mismatch in the plumbing here. This is what the factory came with. This is an inverted flare, double flare. This is an AN flare. So I'll show you what I went through to make the flaring work. This is the tube that came with the compressor, and I'm just reusing some of the bends because these are really nice and sharp bends. It's difficult to make that bend without a mandrel bender. Now, if you guys are super eagle-eyed and understand these AN fittings and this bender or flare tool, you'll know that AN is strictly 37 degrees. This is formed at 45 degrees, which is not perfect, but what I'm doing is I'm using another AN fitting, and I'm just clamping it down. You know, this is a nice steel part. So if I clamp this down with some wrenches, it basically forms it to 37, and I don't think it's going to leak. If it does, we'll deal with it, but generally it's close enough to where this final form on this part with these fittings should make it work just fine. In fact, you can feel it. You can feel the copper or brass just adjusting right here. So now it's nice and firm. So that should do it. There's no burrs on it. I think that's close enough to 37 to where it's going to work just fine. That's what that connection looks like. A few marks from the flare tool, but again, that's not where the sealing occurs. The sealing occurs right here. Ultimately, I ended up having to solder an elbow on the bottom because I didn't get the bends just right. So I had to do some soldering there. But in general, the plumbing wasn't that difficult. And then I just made this bracket here on the side to support not only the weight of the cooler, but also to keep it from flopping around during vibration when the motor's running. I'm just gonna blow out my air filter, but this one should be replaced. Ingersoll-Rand is nice enough to give us the part number right on the top of the cover. So I recommend replacing it. I'm gonna do that too. Once it comes in, I'm gonna go ahead and throw it up on top. One upgrade you may consider is extending this drain plug out, because when you drain the oil, it does make a mess over the entire side of the tank, which attracts a bunch of dirt and stuff. And I'm using the Husky full synthetic compressor oil, only because it's real easy to get. It pours out really clear. And it takes a few of these bottles. And once we see the level there in about the middle of the sight glass, we are done. Put the fill plug back in and we can crank it up. It's probably tight enough. It's an O-ring seal. This is like a relay. So when the pressure is low enough, this kicks on, and it's a low current signal to the magnetic switch, which has much bigger contacts and does a much better job of starting the motor. And it also has additional protections built in it with current overload and all that. So that's definitely a benefit to the motor that basically needs all the current it can get to start. Once it's running, the motor is fine. The other thing that a lot of you did not agree with me on is the tension of the belt. So I have it set pretty loose, and when the compressor starts, you can hear it squeal. So when the belt is at a standstill, there's a lot of friction and tension on it, plus there's the pressure on the bearings and stuff. So my thought was that when this came from the factory, the belt was too tight, and that extra tension and friction on the pulleys was making it hard to start, which may or may not have blown out the previous two motors. But since the belt's been loose, I have not had any issues with motor failure. So I'm gonna leave it loose. I don't care if it squeals. It's a garage and it's super loud anyways. So that's the belt issue. So I'm gonna measure some temperatures before I turn this thing on. The tank is empty right now and everything is at room temperature. It's saying 89 degrees. It's actually not that hot in here, but you know, these infrared thermometers aren't super accurate, but everything is at room temperature. Let's call it 88. So this should heat up dramatically when it starts pumping. That's 98 already. 90.5, 88. Also 88. .205, 163, and 98, 97. The side of the motor is 100. So you can hear that valve is called the unloader valve, and it's taking pressure off the pistons so that next time the compressor starts, you're not fighting against pressure. So you can see the flywheel in the back kind of relaxed as that unloader valve took a little air out. So now it's at max pressure. It's about 170, 165, something like that. The max temperature of this was like, you know, 205. Now that the air is not flowing, it's going to start, you know, dissipating heat, but there's about a 35-degree delta between the top and the bottom, which means it's cooling the air charge 35 degrees, which is really helpful in getting the water to condense out into the tank. So that was just one cycle. That's typically how I run this thing. I'll typically switch it off so it doesn't run overnight. The drain is open, so I'm going to trigger it to turn on. Let's see if we get any water out. Yep, that's a lot of water. That's a little more violent than I expected. I think I can turn this valve so it's not going to blow so hard. So let's just crack this valve open and try that again. We just want to get a dribble out of it. We don't need full pressure. There we go. That's a little better. Even though this is not ideal right here, I think I need an elbow. It's still so much easier to access versus trying to climb underneath this tank and, you know, turn a little screw. This is the valve that it came with, and it's just really hard to reach underneath there and turn this with your fingers. Plus, you can never really get it that tight. So this is a huge improvement. Plus, it just means you're not going to forget to drain it because it's literally going to drain every 45 minutes. This is not bulging or breaking or expanding. I mean, I really hope this holds up. The spec on this is, I think, 125 PSI. So we're overrunning this oil cooler to 170. I don't think it's going to blow apart. I'm going to watch it, make sure it's not going to expand or crack or anything like that. But that is, so far, pretty happy with those results. So just one fill of the tank gave me a lot of water shooting out the bottom. So that's what we want. We want to get rid of the water before it goes into these lines. And then throughout the garage, I have even more traps. Like here's another water trap right here. So a little bit of moisture in there from before. Here's another one up here in my rafters. So really no water to speak of in that regulated hose reel. There's nothing there. And then the very last line of defense, like on my spray gun, which is the most important thing if you want a nice paint job, is a desiccant filter right before the regulator. So any last little bit of vapor in the lines will get sucked up into this desiccant. This is a consumable, so you got to replace it quite often. I replace mine like every 3 months. So if you add up all these upgrades with the switch and the cooler and the motors, I mean, you certainly are probably better off buying a higher quality compressor. I kind of got stuck into this thing because I thought it was going to last me 30 years like my Craftsman air compressor did. But here's where we are. These are the upgrades I've done. I think it's going to be fine for the next maybe 10 years. Fingers crossed. I think the cost of the air compressor was like $1,000. This is like $100. This is probably like $30. The motor, which I had to buy myself, is like $300. And then the automatic drain is, I think, $30. A lot of you guys said, get a ball door motor and be done with it. I mean, those motors themselves can be $1,000 for like a compressor rated motor. I would love to get a ball door motor, but I don't think it's worth it for my use case. I don't use this thing continuously. The motor rarely gets hot. I pretty much will run it for the time it takes to fill the tank and then shut it off. So